Welcome to video number 1, a Republican form of government, private versus public jurisdiction. To understand the clear and definitive line between the private and the public, and how our founding fathers set up this Republican form of government to protect the private with the public, we must first understand a little history. In the beginning, the Creator of all things good imparted His sovereignty to His chief creation, made in His image, called man. Creator's instructions were for us to be fruitful and multiply, and subdue the earth. Without any written law, and with only the law written upon man's heart, man began to fulfill his purpose. But soon thereafter an enemy would coerce man to trespass against his Creator, and to attorn or convert away from the laws written on his heart. Now the law that was intended to be a covenant between two parties had become corrupt, and a third party entered the contract that usurped the birthright of man. Soon, Creator would send reinforcements, whose purpose was to recontract with man, His most sacred creation. But his reinforcements would transgress against man and corrupt all flesh. Left with no choice but to start over again, with a family dedicated to the laws of nature, Creator would destroy the earth with a flood and begin again. Having started anew with Noah and his family, Creator made the first of several covenants with His creation, and once again wrote the law upon the hearts of man. But the ancient enemy would not relent. Through usurpation, deception, coercion, and extortion, which are tools of tyranny, the enemy would again find a foothold in the earth, eventually ensnaring the chosen people of the Creator in Egypt. But soon Creator raised up a man amidst Egypt of His own people and freed His assembly from the clutches of death. The sacred assembly of these peculiar people would now become a nation, and in instituting a nation, Creator wrote statutes on stone. These laws on stone were a list of transgressions against Creator and man. When man violated one of these laws, there was a process for remediation, or making the transgressed party whole, in courts of equity. But soon the new nation desired a king, and abandoned its unique relationship with Creator. After many transgressions from various kings across the earth, Creator unveiled His endgame. The usurpation of the enemy would come to an end. Creator would send His only begotten Son to pay the debt, in blood, for man's transgression against Creator. And Creator would write His law upon the hearts of all men, and restore them to good standing, if only they consented and would be immersed in His name. The age of kings was dead. Now all men were created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights. It was in this time that the private was birthed. The founding fathers of the American Republican form of government were instrumental in establishing a uniquely, biblically endorsed governmental structure that commissioned the public to protect the private. The founding fathers knew that to subdue the earth, as we were commanded by our Creator to do, the private would have to subjugate the public by creating and granting certain limited powers to the public, specifically for our general welfare and mutual protection. In the private, all men are free to do anything they desire unless it transgresses another man and or his inherent rights. Understanding the inherent rights of man, we the people had to write law that would enumerate and grant only the powers necessary to carry out certain protections of our inherent rights to a constitutional government. We the people of the United States of America accomplished this in conventions, through which we the people ratified the Constitution of the United States of America. The public became duty-bound under oath to Creator to fulfill its sacred protection of the private. If ever the private was usurped by the public, the private would have a mechanism in place to hold the public accountable. The civil authority grand juries and civil authority courts of record by common law due process. These mechanisms, being called forth only when needed, would serve the private and ensure that the public never became corruptible. With its granted officers, the sheriff, justice of the peace, clerk of courts, militia, backing the decisions of the private tribunals of jurymen, it would always hold the highest jurisdiction in the land. With the limited powers of constitutional office, political parties would never usurp the people, because the public would seldom have an act to debate or decide upon. The limited government would seldom be heard from. The public side of the Republican form of government would be spending most of their time as private citizens, making a living to bring wealth into their households. The same can be said for the constitutional public courts of equity, which would not often be needed to resolve differences between offices within limited government. You can now see the decisive line between the private and the public jurisdictions. The private or civil authority jurisdiction is the highest in the land because it represents the jurisdiction of our inherent rights, where every man is subject to his Creator, as opposed to the public or constitutional jurisdiction, which is subject to the civil authority. We the people, its Creator. This ends video number 1. Please pause for questions.